Hey, what's up guys? In today's video we're going to be doing a ring combining two new materials. So we're going to be starting with titanium. We've done that before. What's going to make this special, I've got some whiskey barrel oak as well as some antler. And this whiskey barrel oak, this is really cool. So this comes literally just straight from a whiskey barrel. You can even see a little line of rust on there. That's where a metal band was that just holding the barrel in place. And then it's got that charred black outside on it, and then just that nice beautiful oak on the inside. So this is gonna be really cool to work with. And when we're done with the ring, I'm going to do a charred finish with the blowtorch on it, and that's to replicate this black finish that it has on the outside. So I think that'll look really cool, makes it look kind of antique. And then this antler's always cool. It's a very interesting material because it's so porous. And so it's got all these different holes. It gives it a really amazing texture. So we're going to be taking both of these. We need to stabilize them with resin that will make them waterproof as well as much more durable. And then the design for this is going to be really simple. It's just going to be two bands of both of these materials surrounding the titanium. So the titanium is going to be on the inside of the ring and then just a thin stripe in the middle. And I think just the combination of these three materials together, I think it's going to work really well. And so I'm really excited to see how this turns out. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so for the first step, I'm going to be trimming away the outer profile that I want for this ring, and this is a little bit different from what you see me normally do. I usually go over to my metal bandsaw and cut off a disc and work from there, but on this ring there's a lot of work that I need to do to the outer diameter, and so if I were to cut off a disc and trim up the inner diameter and do all that, and then go and do all of the outer profiling to it, and if I mess something up there, that would be a lot of wasted time. So I'm starting with the most difficult and tedious step here, and that way if I mess anything up, I could just start over. It wouldn't be that bad. And the inner diameter, that's always fairly easy, so that's just the reason why I'm doing it a little bit different in this video. And like I said earlier, I want a center stripe of titanium in this ring, and so I'm leaving a little strip of it untouched in the middle here, and then just trimming away both edges of it. And then you can see I'm using my calipers every step of the way. Almost every single time I make a cut, I measure and double check everything. And that's because I need those two pieces of the antler and the wood to fit very precisely, so there's not a lot of room for error here. Now I've got the outer profile how I want. You can see I put a little groove here at the end of the ring. This is just a mark where the end of the ring is. I don't want to do any cutting or cause any sort of damage to anything to the right of that. It's time to switch over and do some of the inside work. This is titanium that I'm working with. It's a very tough material. It can give you a lot of issues if you're not using the correct tools. So I'm going very slowly. I'm switching between drill bits to hollow out the inner diameter. Those are able to go to a much further depth, and then I'm able to widen it out a lot more. And just because titanium is so difficult to machine, I'm able to just go step by step. I can change the drill bit size slowly and then get to the diameter that I need, and so that I can fit my boring bar in there. And then once I get to that point, it's pretty straightforward from there. So I just continue to widen it out exactly how I need it, and I go all the way up till almost the final ring size that I'm going for, but I leave it a little bit small. That leaves me a little teeny bit of room for some final trimming or adjustments that I need to do, and then just some room to sand off a little bit of it when we go to the polishing steps. So now I've got the inside done, we got a nice smooth finish in there, and we're going to switch over to our whiskey barrel and our antler. We need to stabilize those. And so you can see here I've got a bath of stabilizing resin that I'm putting them in, and I put a metal block on top of them. That's to keep them submerged. Right now they would float in the resin. And then my next step is I put them in this vacuum chamber. And what that does is it sucks all of the air out of the materials, and then when it sucks the air out, the resin takes its place. So that sucks into every teeny little crack on these and just fills them completely full of resin. This will make them a lot more durable and strong, and then just completely water resistant as well. Now once they're done in the vacuum, I take them out. They need to cure in the oven here, and so I just wrap them in tin foil, put them in there at about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes, so I just leave them in there, let it cool down, and now I took them out and we've got our stabilized materials ready to go. So now I need to hollow out a hole on the middle and then just cut the pieces out. So I'm using a Forstner bit for the inner diameter of both of these materials, and then I switch over to this huge diamond grit Dremel wheel, and that's a material that does pretty well with abrasive, so that's why I'm using that. And the quickest way to do this is just to quickly get kind of a rough square piece cut out here, and then that's when I'll switch over to this belt sander, and then I'll round it out a little bit. And we just want to get pretty close to the final dimensions that we want, but definitely not too far. I want to leave a little bit of room to trim these down once I've got them over on the lathe. Okay, so now we have our whiskey barrel oak as well as our antler blanks ready to go. My next step is going to be switching over to the lathe, and I'm going to hollow out the inside so that it fits perfectly on the titanium ring core that we made earlier. So the way I do this is I cut pretty quickly. I get to about the diameter that we need, but I'm really careful to stay under that. And then once I get close, that's when I go and I just take teeny little passes off here. I'm taking less than 1/1000th of an inch away from the material every time I pass, so it's just very small, and I get it to the point where it'll go on, but with a little bit of resistance. I don't want it to be too difficult though, on the other hand, because I don't want there to be any cracking, but as long as I can get it to stick so it doesn't fall off, you can kind of twist it around a little bit, but you definitely do have to pull on it up just a little bit to get it to pop off. So I've got the oak done. That was a little bit of an easier material to work with, and so that's why I did that first, and now I'm switching over to the antler. I gotta be a little bit more careful with this, as I'm sure it's just a little bit more fragile, and so I'm just going to repeat those exact same steps. We'll get that fit just how we want it, and then once we're done there, I need to cut off the titanium ring core off of the rest of the piece, and then we'll be able to glue both the oak and the antler in position. So to separate our titanium core from the rest of the piece, I'm using what's called a cutoff bit here, and it's really quick. I'm just pushing it forward into the material until it separates the ring core from the rest of the piece. Okay, now I'm going to be using some CA adhesive to fix the whiskey oak in place. And I'm using an ultra thin adhesive here, and this is very, very viscous, so it's runnier than water is, and so it's able to seep into any of the little pores or cracks that we have left and get a really good fit. And it gets the glue all the way around the diameter of the ring, and so we've got a really solid contact between the adhesive and the materials. Now I repeat the same steps with the antler, just glue it all in place. I trim it all up, make sure it's all flush. And now at this point, we've got all of our materials in place. We haven't trimmed it down or sanded it or polished it or charred the oak, anything like that yet, but it's already starting to look good, and I'm liking the way these materials are looking together. Now it's time to throw the ring onto our mandrel here, and I have these available on my ring supplies website. There's a link to that down in the description. And what we're doing here is I'm just trimming the whole ring flush, so I'm getting rid of any of the unevenness. The oak and the antler, those were just straight off the sander at this point, and so they weren't really round at all. They were just kind of eyeballed it to this point. So this is going to trim it down to the final diameter that we want, and then just make sure the materials are perfectly flushed together and they look nice. Now I've got the outer diameter how I want it. We still need to do a little bit of sanding and touch-ups to it, but that's all of the shaping that I'm going to do to it. And so now I'm going to switch to the inside diameter, and that's where we're going to do our finishing touches. So I trimmed it down using the boring bar, just a really small amount. Like I said earlier, I left a little bit of room here, and so I'm trimming it just very slightly till I get it to the ring size that I want. And then I'm switching over to the Dremel, and I'm rounding off the edge here. That'll give this a nice comfort finish, so it's really comfortable to wear. And then for this ring, I wanted to do a brushed finish. I think the titanium would look a little bit cold and kind of too sterile with these kind of natural and really warm other materials that we're working with. And so the brush finish, I think, really adds to that, makes it look just a little bit more natural, a little more homey and comfortable in my opinion. So to do that, I go straight from the Dremel, I switch over to 220 grit, and I give that a really thorough sanding. And that's to get rid of any of the scratches or gouges that the Dremel could have left, because that's a really rough bit on there, and I don't want to have any residual scratches left from that, because that could be a little bit uncomfortable for the finger. So I take a lot of time on the 220, get it very smooth, and then I switch over to a 320 grit, and I just very quickly touch it to the surface. And I don't hold on there too long. I still want the grit on the sandpaper to be really fresh, so it creates some really clean lines on there that just kind of brings out the brushed look just a little bit more. So now I've got the inner diameter completely finished. It's time to switch back over to the outer diameter. I'm going to put it once again onto our ring mandrel here. And the first steps I take are pretty simple. I'm just doing some sanding here, getting everything smoothed out. I don't want any sanding lines on it. And then it's time to do the charred finish. So to do this, I'm wrapping electric tape around both the antler and some of the titanium, and that's to protect it from the blowtorch. I don't want to cause any discolorations or affect the antler in any adverse way. So I put 3 to 4 layers of that electric tape on there. That insulates it pretty well, and you can see the blowtorch, it just kind of instantly melts away the electric tape, but that's okay because we're getting that charred effect on the whiskey barrel oak really quickly as well. And so even though I'm really quickly destroying the electric tape, I just get in there, get the charring done as quickly as I can, and then once I pull the electric tape off, you can see it's in perfect condition still. So after I was done with the blowtorch, I just did a little bit of sanding, and this was to fine-tune the finish how I wanted it. There were some places that were a little bit too charred, and so what this does is it just kind of evens it all out, gives it a really nice consistent and even finish. And now the ring is finished, and I think it just looks so good. I just love these natural materials together. I just feel like it's not often enough that I work with natural materials like this. I'm always trying to push the limit with kind of exotic materials and whatever cool stuff I can do, but I think it's really fun to just come back and work with some simple stuff, all the different patterns, textures, and colors that nature can provide you in just a few simple materials is kind of insane. The antler is just very cool to look at. It's very intricate. It's got a lot of small details, which is fantastic for rings. And then the whiskey barrel oak, that just looks really cool. We've got that wood grain there, and then the charred finish I think looks really nice on this. And so this was just a super fun ring to make, and then the results, I was just blown away by it. So overall, I'm just in love with this thing. And right when we finished, the sun was about to set, so we went outside. There's this perfect just golden sunlight, and so we took a bunch of pictures and videos. So this was just kind of like the perfect culmination. Everything turned out right. My nature levels at this point were just absolutely through the roof. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to let me know what you think. And then I'm actually going to be putting this ring on my website. I think it's about time that I add another ring to my nature series, and I couldn't think of a better one to do. So if you're interested in that, I've got a link to that down in the description. We might even do a discount code right when we launch this, just so we can get a little kickstart and production on these, get a few orders, get them sent out. And then like I said, be sure to leave any feedback you have for me. If you like this ring, let me know if you've got any suggestions for any other rings that just use natural materials. And then as always, during the last few seconds of the video, you're gonna have a few different boxes that pop up on your screen. In the upper right hand corner, that's just my PAD logo. If you click on that, that'll subscribe you to my YouTube channel. And then in the bottom right hand corner, that's a video of mine that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy, so they use their algorithm to figure that out. And then in the bottom left hand corner, that's a button you can click and it'll take you to my rings website. So once again, I just want to thank you all so much for watching. I love making rings, and I really do love sharing it with you guys. That's honestly one of the best parts. I love seeing what you guys have to say about it, getting your guys' reaction, and then just sharing the whole video. So just thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.